checking in, Mr. Houseman?
No, thanks. I've been here for 3 weeks, but thanks so much for finally noticing me.
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Houseman.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast. Me, your host, Glenn Houseman. Really happy to have each and every one of you here with me every single week. And if this is your first time joining the show, thanks so much for tuning in. And I am so excited that so many people are starting to catch on to the show. Week after week after week, we're getting so many new listeners, and I'm absolutely loving it. Before we go any further, I want to thank Duetto for sponsoring this program. So the show is indeed brought to you in part by Duetto, the revenue strategy technology platform thousands of hotels are using to make more money. Go check out getrevenueresults.com and you're going to see an amazing video about how a hotel can put together a smart revenue optimization strategy and really connect all those different departments in your organization and make all of the folks within your hotel really be successful. I also want to thank Red Roof for being a great sponsor here on the show. And if you guys are interested in sponsoring the show, drop me a line, glenn@rouse.media. All right. So, this is what space smells like, and I am here with Mr. Michael McCormick of the Global Business Travel Association, where he's the executive director and COO, an organization that I absolutely love, and I had a chance to go to their annual meeting this year and the previous year, and I think these guys are doing great things, and I wanted to bring them into the hospitality side of our world, our community here, because the information that they have is so important, so relevant to everything that you folks do. So let's give a big welcome to Mike McCormick. Mike, how are you today, sir?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Glenn. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, too. Love what you folks are doing over there. You're such a great organization. I think the best way for us to start, since I've got a lot of folks on the hospitality side of business, is maybe tell us a little bit about what the organization is and what your goals are.
Well, so we are the Global Business Travel Association, and we represent, as you know from the name, the business travel industry globally. But what that means is that we bring together a pretty incredible marketplace, both buyers and sellers in the marketplace. So everybody that works at the companies all over the world that are responsible for buying travel for a living, they are the ones responsible for policy, responsible for setting up the hotel programs, setting up compliance, security. The list goes on. I mean, those roles now today are certainly multifaceted, challenging, and really bring in, a wide variety of skills that are required to be successful. And then on the selling side, it's sales and marketing execs from hotels, airlines, car rental companies, intermediaries of all types, and our industry really touches every other industry. We talk about that all the time. I mean, we, as a business travel industry, we drive every other industry. People go on the road, obviously, to drive more revenue and make their businesses successful. So we touch every other industry. So we find ourselves more and more in the discussion on all fronts, not just, in core travel issues, but really risk, policy, HR. And now these days, in a very low unemployment environment, it's also travel policy is a lot about being an employer of choice and people choosing companies based on what kind of policies those companies have towards travel. Will they get the opportunities to travel as part of their job? And how will they be treated when they're out on the road?
That's a really great point, Mike. Good. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ch you off. Go on.
No, but just those are the things we're involved in. It's a huge marketplace that represents about $400 billion worth of purchasing going on, year round.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So last month, Mike, I was at an event in Seattle, and it was another association, so I'm not going to mention them here right now, but I spoke to a lot of folks on videos, and anyone listening can check out heretostay.tv to see all of those videos for that project that I work on, and that was absolutely a common theme, Mike, how people who are in charge with booking travel for the folks within their corporation, they're seeing that those folks want choice. They want to be able to stay in the places that they want, when they want, and the companies are seeing this as a value add in order to keep those folks in their jobs because we are essentially at full unemployment.
Yeah, and if you look at what the key drivers of a successful trip and the elements that really matter, the hotel plays such a critical role in that experience. And so, people have obviously very personal views and when it comes to hotels. I mean, even just back to look at the number of hotel brands that are out there now. You have obviously the mega brands, but then all of the sub brands that are looking to cater to very individual needs, towards business travelers, leisure travelers, different hybrid types of trips. So you look at what's happening with the marketplace, and there's the huge push towards personalization, towards customization, towards trying to find ways to deliver products and services that really matter to a whole array of types of travelers and their needs. It's a really interesting and kind of exciting time in the hotel business as a result.
Yeah, it surely is. It's very exciting to see how all of these things are changing, and it's very interesting to watch how the hotel brands are starting to change. And I've been talking a lot about that whole notion of convergence, that we're seeing traditional hotel products become more like alternative accommodations, and alternative accommodations such as condos and stuff and serviced apartments. They're starting to morph a little bit to be more like hotels. So,
right.
Any idea where all of this goes to, or is it really just going to be an issue of maybe we got 7 billion people in the world and eventually we'll just have 7 billion different brands?
Well, I mean, my question, it's funny you say that. My question for the brands is how can, from a business and marketing perspective, is it really hard to continue to service all of those brands? At some point, it seems like it gets a bit unwieldy, right? There's a bit of a reckoning there where, you have certainly want to have a range of brands to support different types of needs, but how finite are you going to go? Again, how many brands are you going to have? Now, again, the loyalty programs come into play because clearly that ties together, all of the respective brands under kind of one roof, if you want to call it that.
Yep.
But again, it's a lot of complication. I mean, I would challenge you if you and I, were to take a quiz and you line up, all of the respective, sub brands on one column and all the master brands on the other, would we get them all right? I'd say you might do a little better than me, but
right.
We probably both wouldn't get them all right.
Oh, no way.
So,
I don't even think, honestly, Mike, I don't even think the CEOs of the companies even know all the names of their brands. There are so many. And I'm only half joking, but how can Arnie Sorensen at Marriott have top of mind remembrance of the 30 brands that they have in their family? It's a whole lot, and it makes me wonder where they're going to be going from here. And I see that as a concern for the hospitality companies out there. I don't want to bash any of them. I love them. They support me and this show, but I worry that the customers don't see it as the same way as the brands think that the customers see them.
Right. And so then back to the business travelers and their needs. I mean, but that personalization part is just such a key driving theme. And I see it. I know the brands and the hoteliers are working hard to try to do that because, again, in a very good economy, robust economy that we have, and certainly profit levels are high, and we've had good sustained economies largely. So, business is good. So the attention really does turn to, in that environment, it's good in one sense, but also means it's also very competitive, right? And so loyalty with travelers, servicing travelers in this environment is really critical to continue to command those higher, ADRs, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot that goes into it. And, that's something that, again, when you figure business travelers consider on average 3 hotels before booking every time they book, when 82% of them say that loyalty programs really matter in that decision, but they're still reviewing the marketplace and looking for what works. And that all of that ties into a really critical part of their business travel decisions. That's a lot to consider, and ones that I know the brands have to take and are taking very seriously.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you just said about loyalty still mattering, because there's a whole lot of conversation within the hospitality community about the state of loyalty today. And one of the things that I hear over and over again is that millennials are not loyal to brands. But you put out a survey that you were just quoting some statistics from back in October that really makes me think that once folks are within the business community, then suddenly loyalty becomes a much more important factor.
And I would say a little differently on that kind of sentiment about, the millennials or younger travelers and what their motivates them. I would say in some ways, some of that is really overstated, meaning that younger travelers, coming into the marketplace as business travelers are just as excited about business travel as, their generations before. I think it matters as much to them as it does to anyone else. I mean, people enjoy travel. They like travel as part of their job, as part of their, because as much as they like it in their personal lives. I mean, travel, seeing the world, being out there is still, look at what happened. Look at all of the sentiment, years ago that video conferencing was going to replace business travel. It's like, well, we know that didn't happen, right?
Yes.
So, as humans, we want to be out there. We want to be face to face. We want to experience things. So that has never changed, right? And won't change. I mean, and so in that respect, it's like very much the same. But I think what's interesting is you also have to consider that if you're coming into the marketplace today, let's say you're a 20-something, 30-something traveler, you have maybe a different mindset because you've been exposed to, and you've from the beginning, more choice, more options, more information than maybe others in years past.
Agreed.
So you have a little different mindset about how you arrive at what you do. I think the advent of entering into, you mentioned like the home sharing, apartment sharing. Some of the corporate apartment solutions that are out there that are offered up now, like on a per night basis. All of those types of products also are in the mix now where they weren't before.
Right.
So it does change the decision process some, and I think at times, depending on again, an individual's desire to have maybe a in-city experience, staying. So I'm there for a week. I might want to experience something different than just staying at the brand hotel that I'm familiar with. Those types of choices, like I said, really weren't there before. So it's not that it's anything new per se, but it's just the range of options, the range of the amount of information you have and can consider before making a booking is just so much greater than it was even 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
I think that's an amazing point. And the other thing that I had a little bit of an epiphany while you were talking over here just a second ago. Younger people, a lot of times they aren't brand loyal because they haven't tried out the brands to figure out what brand works for them, right?
Exactly right.
At some point in my life, I decided on what toothpaste and deodorant that I like. But a little bit later in my life, I decided what hotel brands that I like, which ones I prefer to stay at. And, for me, because I love all hoteliers over there, it's usually the hotel where the conference is. That's where I like to stay most of all. But what are some of the other elements that you're seeing now in terms of this personalized guest experience? You were talking about why that's essential, but what is it that travelers are looking to see get personalized? Because I have a feeling it's not really those pillow menus that I get from get press releases on every day.
No, not. I mean, if you look at the things that seemingly that people say they matter the most, it really, in a lot of ways, does come down to some fundamentals. Certainly having some preferred hotel amenities on site.
Right.
Getting, basically more detailed, like a better experience in and around just the information I have maybe on that brand, that brand's app, meaning like I've got, all my details there. I've got a more detailed itinerary, maybe a little more customization about my personal experience. And then it's the wraparound things, the restaurants, the information about, things nearby. Especially if I'm trying to incorporate a bit of leisure at all into a business trip. So those things seem to really stand out. For the hotel side of it, it becomes, the challenge of how do I deliver those, efficiently, effectively, consistently, but at the same time, make it feel as if, it's very individual, right? And that's the old phrase, the mass customization phrase, not always the easiest, right? And that's the challenge.
Yeah, but it's super easy for me because whenever I do stage experiences, appearances, I always tell people about mass customization, and it's easy for me. Then they have to go and do it, and I just move on to the next event. So, it's very, very difficult. Please continue.
Yeah. So the other part is now let's flip to the travel buyer.
Right.
The person in charge of the policy.
Excellent.
The person who's trying to communicate with all these travelers.
Mm-hmm.
They have their needs. And I think the age-old conflict is between the travel manager, the old phrase, but certainly the person in charge of the travel program for the company. That on one side, trying to implement policy, trying to save money for the company, trying to do the things that that they put into policy to make sure that people are really following, staying within the guidelines of what the company can afford and what they want to support.
Right.
Those kind of challenges still exist, but in this environment, it is a much different, far more complex exercise because you're really back to that issue about low unemployment environment. You want people to feel like they have choice, that they have a degree of personalization about what they can do when they're traveling, so that they can really maximize the business opportunities too. It's an interesting thing because the age-old thinking about policy is that if you were out of policy, it was bad. It was very binary, black and white. If it's, if I'm out of policy, then I must be doing something wrong. The reality is, and with all the work and the studies we've looked at, is that the vast majority of out of policy is really somebody trying to accomplish a business objective that the policy doesn't allow. There is an element in there, a small element, that might be somebody trying to do something or spend money they shouldn't, or have a benefit they shouldn't, while they're traveling. Okay, put those aside for a minute. A lot of the rest of it is really, how do I make the policy flexible enough so that the people I trust that are out there, trying to accomplish my business objectives, can make some good decisions that allow them to get the best outcomes. So, in the hotel world, it might be like, again, the proximity to the meetings I'm going to, figuring out some logistical things that ultimately, even from a cost perspective, might say, well, if I stay here, I can get in that one more meeting that could make a big difference, allow 2 more hours with a customer that could make a big difference, or something that matters, and I've got to make a decision to spend $20 more on a hotel night, which is irrelevant in the scheme of things compared to the business objective. So there's elements like that, or even the status I have with a particular hotel might allow me to do some things to save money on site because I know I can get a meeting room or I can do certain things that I otherwise couldn't if I'm staying at a brand who doesn't know me.
Right. Go on.
Yeah. I'm just saying there's like a lot in there that's hard to put into a strict policy.
Right. And it's the same thing with airlines as well. I'm very loyal to a specific airline, and I had an incident once where I paid X amount of dollars, and the financial officer comes to me and says, that flight was $50 more than I found somewhere else. I'm like, yeah, but my luggage is for free, and I get free meals on the plane because I'm going to get an upgrade, and I get to go to the Sky Lounge, and I'll be in a much better head, and you won't have to pay for my, and then you won't have to pay for my luggage, you won't have to pay for my meals, so this is actually less expensive for you. Right. So it's good to know that travel managers are understanding this more and more, and I'm seeing technology come into place where they actually reward the people that are doing the traveling for making smarter decisions. So the major company can, the parent company could save a lot of money while the employee gets some sort of financial reward or some other sort of incentive for booking in a little bit different way.
Yep. And again, all that, it all kind of comes back around to this bit, the thoughts about, how much room do I, room do I give my travelers to make those decisions? How do I arm them with better information? And again, there's not the push and pull between the policymakers and the folks that are trying to drive bigger company objectives and the travelers who are trying to deliver results. I mean, I think we've gotten a lot better as an industry, period, at really driving better outcomes and healthier kind of communication and information and smarter policies and just better tools. I mean, let's face it, one of the biggest advantages that we have now of all the technology that is available, and some days it's a blessing and a curse that we're hyper-connected and all that, right? But it does mean from a business and business travel perspective, those are really enabling tools that have helped companies to be able to be, basically have better policies that are smarter policies because they can communicate with their travelers more easily, implement, more, let's say, more detailed, more personalized, different types of policies depending on the type of traveler that's out there.
You talked about hybrid stays, the idea of mixing business and then a leisure component to it. Are you seeing that more companies are being permissive with allowing their folks to spend a couple of days either before or after the trip in order to have some personal experiences, either on the company dollar or the individual's expense?
Yeah, so the companies, I mean, generally more companies are trying to be flexible and more flexible, but the issue really is more of an issue of risk and duty of care.
Yes.
Because
interesting.
So I'm traveling out. I'm going to take a business trip, and then I'm tacking on, a few days for leisure time. So where does the company's obligations begin and end? Because then when they get back on the plane to come back home and they're back on a company, funded ticket again, I mean, do those 2 days, do I go dark with my traveler? And are they on their own? What if something happens to them? Do I still have really an inherent obligation to them, a duty of care obligation, even because it's still a part of a business trip? And I think companies still are struggling with it at times because, again, where does that begin and end? Where, in effect, am I kind of punching out, punching back in? And the way we all work today, too, everybody works, nobody's punching a clock. Virtually everybody is working some sort of, blended, work schedule where, you're always doing work in some ways. You're always plugged in. So where does that begin and end? And, in a worst case, something happens, when is the company still liable? And I think there's a lot of conversation, a lot of talk, and really those two issues, meaning duty of care and personalization, and the communication with their travelers. Those three areas are really the biggest topics of conversation at all of our events with all of our members globally.
So what are some of the things that you're seeing in terms of this duty of care aspect? Because I know the travel managers want their employees to be able to have these experiences because it is a value add of the job. It does engender the employee to love the company that they're working with even more. So has there been progress down this road? Are there any solutions at the forefront, or are we still in the heck, we don't know what to do because we're just trying to not have the lawyers get involved kind of phase?
No, I think it's beyond that. I think what it's come to is having to really work out some very detailed policy and kind of understanding about those and spelling them out. And companies are, and they're having to take the time to do it. And for the reason you said, because they want their travelers to be able to benefit from it. It's and have that flexibility because companies are also, asking as they do of all of us, to spend a lot, more time, more blended time, kind of always in effect being on call, being accessible. So, there is that balance of, I think largely progressive companies are trying to say we've got to find a way to do this and be smart about it. It's not an issue of not doing it. It's just, how do we best do it?
So it's really got to be difficult, though, for some of the really larger companies to try to make this shift into changing all of their travel policies in order to get united with their employees a little bit better. Are certain companies or certain industries having better luck with this, or is it just too early to tell?
Kind of early to tell.
Yeah. All right.
And
All right, fair enough. All right. So, what else is on your mind today? That you really think is important that my listeners learn today?
Well, I think probably the last thing I'd say is just in general that we are really in a time when we've got very healthy environment, very healthy dynamics for the travel industry at large. Both the airline, hotel, car rental sector, et cetera, all having very strong earnings, have clearly been able to over the past years make a lot of investments back into their brand, back into their product, as we've talked about, and it's all good. But I think the outlook is one where on paper everything seems to be strong in terms of some continued growth in demand, some continued growth in price increases, so that will those will continue because it reflects the health of the market. But I think there's a little bit of wariness also too. Have we reached some sort of peak or plateau? Everybody's watching earnings very closely. Everybody's watching the market very closely. The market itself is very seemingly kind of erratic day to day, so that always causes some consternation. But I think, look, the underlying fundamentals of the industry are solid, and that's the good news. I mean, we've had a nice, long, sustained growth, for the travel industry. So we're in a good place, overall. So, I mean, that's probably the big picture. And, as always, we can never predict it all. So always excited to see what's still coming. And, we're with this industry is just an amazing industry to work in. I've worked in it my whole career, and I consider myself, blessed to do so. It's a great industry.
What side of the industry did you come up in before you were executive director and COO of GBTA?
Well, my first job out of college was doing financial analysis for a travel agency called Rosenbluth Travel in Philadelphia. And if you have been around the industry, you would know that Rosenbluth ended up growing from being a small regional agency that basically was a leisure agency that grew into corporate travel in its early days, and then became a $3.5 billion global agency that eventually became a part of American Express. But I had a great run with for the first part of my career there. And as they say, once you start working in travel, you never leave. And I'm another case in point of that.
I
ended up staying my whole career in travel so far, so it's great.
You got that right. I started my career in the music and entertainment side of things, and as soon as I discovered the travel side in terms of journalism, I was never a musician or an entertainer. I can't imagine going anywhere else. It's just such a freaking awesome business, and I absolutely love it. How did you change from that side of the business to wanting to work with such a prominent association?
Well, I did work. I worked for various brands, in the industry, all on the kind of the for-profit business side, and then going on 10 years ago, I got an opportunity to come join what was NBTA, that was still a national organization, and with an opportunity to come in and help grow the organization. And I was intrigued, clearly, because I ended up taking the job, and here I am 10 years later, still doing it. So had a lot of fun, and it's a great, just a great organization. And I enjoy it because it really gives me, an opportunity to be right in the middle of the whole industry and the people that I know and worked with for my whole career.
It certainly does. And I've got great friends such as Dorothy Dowling from Best Western, who's very much involved. She's on your board, for example. But
yep.
I also love that I get a chance to talk to folks from the airlines. I get a chance to talk to folks from other types of travel companies like ground transportation and stuff. And it really helps create a great 360-degree picture of the entire hotel industry, of the entire travel industry, I mean. And for all of you listeners out there, I highly suggest that you try getting involved in the GBTA because it's going to give you great perspective. You won't just see things myopically from the hospitality point of view and the hotel point of view. It'll give you a much better idea of what's really happening. Mike, maybe there's some events people could go to, or how could they get involved in the association? What's going on with you guys in 2019?
Well, there's so much to get involved in because everywhere from the chapter level here in the U.S., you can get involved in your local chapter. We have 40 of them across the U.S., so you have every opportunity to get involved there. We have committees. We have all kinds of volunteer opportunities that you can, engage and be a part of. Then, of course, with our events, we have events all over the world, everywhere from, again, those local chapter events to events in Canada, Mexico, all throughout Latin America, Europe, Australia, India. So, anywhere you are doing business, we probably have a way for you to connect with GBTA. And then, of course, convention will be in Chicago in August, it's we're sizing up to again be our largest yet again ever.
Wow.
And we're excited about going to Chicago. We had almost 7,000 folks in San Diego this past year. I think we're going to beat that.
Woo.
And we'll have the whole industry there in one place for 4 days, and it's worth the price of admission. It really is. If you're in the business in any way, you get to see it all and be with really everybody in the entire industry.
And I can attest to that. I've been there twice already, and I cannot wait for my third trip, which will be this coming August. So going to be at the Navy Pier or somewhere else in Chicago?
Right at the convention center at McCormick Place.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm a little partial, given the name, of course.
Yeah.
But
That's great. Well, it'll be your place for sure for a few days. I better go make my room reservation now before everyone catches on to how many people are going to be coming to your event.
Right. Yeah. Well, registration will go up before Christmas, and get in, book early. You get lots of benefits for doing so. And then we'll hopefully see you all there in Chicago in August.
Great. And if you want to learn more about the Global Business Travel Association, simple enough, gbta.org. Check it out. I really think that you guys should try to get involved in this organization. I can't speak about them highly enough. Mike, thanks so much for being here today.
Glenn, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. Enjoy talking with you.
I really appreciate it, too. And, guys, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after this commercial break with another great interview. But just remember this, you've got one life, so blaze on. We'll be right back.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Glenn here. So as you know, this has been a pretty exciting year for Red Roof. A couple of months ago, I told you about Hometown Studios by Red Roof and how it's an excellent opportunity for franchisees looking to get in on the incredible explosive growth of the extended stay segment. Remember what I told you in the past. Lodging Econometrics says 27% of all new hotels in the pipeline are extended stay. This market is hot. And today, there's already 40 Hometown Studios open, with more opening every single week as their $50 million renovation program is completed. Each apartment-style studio offers the amenities guests want, including upgraded decor, kitchenette with full-size refrigerator, on-site laundry facilities, free Wi-Fi, and more, all while continuing Red Roof's tradition of clean, comfortable accommodations at an unmatched value. Meanwhile, franchisees get Red Roof's significant brand awareness, their seasoned management team, and their richest-in-class loyalty program. More than 2.5 million members! And just happens to be the least expensive loyalty program for owners. And that's in addition to their award-winning marketing department and a dedicated website based on their fastest in-class with mobile-first technology. Finally, with Hometown Studios by Red Roof, you'll be working with a company with franchisee satisfaction of 94%. That's amazing, and twice my high school GPA. And those franchisees will tell you genuine relationships, real results. It isn't just some slogan, it's how Red Roof does business. So get in on the new way to extended stay and visit redrooffranchising.com or call 888-473-8861. That's redrooffranchising.com or 888-473-8861. And tell them Glenn sent you.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. You know I'm always excited to have you folks listening here each and every week on the No Vacancy Show. So I'm really excited. We've been talking a whole lot about saving the environment. One of the things that we've been talking about lately as a culture, not necessarily here on the show, is about how suddenly, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, we've reached this mass consciousness that, we got to do something to get rid of these single-use plastic straws. And one company that's really the forefront of this is Aqua-Aston Hospitality, and they're one of Hawaii's leading hotel and resort condo management companies with more than 40 properties in great places beyond just Hawaii. And today I have Theresa Van Greunen from the company. We're going to learn a little bit about them and why they're caring so much about the environment. Theresa, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Terrific. Absolutely terrific to have you out there. Now, being that you're out there in the middle of Hawaii, and I know you know this, but not everybody knows this, Hawaii is the furthest away from any other significant landmass than anywhere else on the entire planet. So because of that, folks may not be as familiar with Aqua-Aston as some of the others. So maybe you could tell me a little bit about Aqua-Aston Hospitality, where you came from, and, why the environment is so important to you folks as well after that.
Absolutely. So our company was founded in 1948, about 70 years ago, which is a long time.
Yeah, it sure was.
We've been in the business of sharing the aloha for all those decades, and founded as a family business by the Tetebue family. Now we're a big organization. We have more than 2,500 employees, as you said, more than 40 hotels all throughout the island, as well as Orlando and Costa Rica. And we are in the business of hotel management. So our guests are always on vacation, mostly living here in a tropical destination, and also in a destination that's really known for its natural beauty. So everyone comes to Hawaii, they want to see the green, lush landscape, they want to go snorkeling and see wonderful, colorful fish and coral, and just really experience being out in nature. That's one of the things that our destination is most known for. So since we are such a huge company in this island colony, we recognize the importance of protecting the environment that our guests are coming here to see. Our company alone hosts more than 5 million people every year just in Hawaii. And so that's a huge opportunity to make a positive or a negative impact. And so we're taking the high road. We're going to try and make a positive impact. And that's why we're really looking out for the environment and everything that we do.
And that's really terrific because, I've got to be honest with you, Theresa. I've been to Hawaii a few times in my life. I think it is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to in the entire planet. It's such a special place, and even more reason to try to save it. But specifically, you're doing a lot of things to try to make sure that those really important global coral reefs are taken care of. You take a look at what's happening to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, how much of that has already been decimated, and other places in the world that's really starting to become dangerous to protecting marine life. I'm sure you have those numbers at the top of your head, but isn't it like most of the life in the sea really collected around these global reefs, for example?
Yes, in fact, they are known to be the rainforest of the sea. The coral reefs really provide a lot of nutrients to sea life. They also protect the shoreline from weather events like high surf, and also protect the shoreline against erosion. So they're really very, very important. Whether or not you enjoy, marine activity and want to see it or not, they provide a lot of stability to the natural environment, and they take years and years to grow. So you brought up the Great Barrier Reef. I heard a story yesterday on the news that they're actually investigating how to grow coral to try and preserve what's left of the barrier reef.
Wow.
And that's a great initiative, but it grows so slowly that really the most important thing to do is to protect it from bleaching in the first place. So that's really one of the things that inspired our company, Aqua-Aston, to pursue what we call our Reef Safe campaign. And we were actually struck by reading all of the news about the Great Barrier Reef and coral bleaching events back to back that were really putting the reefs globally, not only in Australia, but also here in Hawaii, under risk. And so we noticed that some of our most popular snorkeling areas, including Hanauma Bay here on Oahu, were actually really being affected in a negative way by these coral bleaching events. And I was reading a lot of news about it. And one of the things that I realized in reading this news is that sunscreen is actually a source of pollution, and it hurts the coral as well and makes it more susceptible to coral bleaching. And that was just such a moment, an epiphany, because we always associate sunscreen as being a good thing for our health, to protect our skin. So,
yeah, totally, Theresa. And this gets me really thinking about all of these things. The big phrase in society is, becoming woke these days, right? All of these different issues. And one of the things that we don't do is we don't really do a lot of critical thinking about how sometimes our actions can affect the stuff that's immediately beyond us, right? And when it comes to what we're talking about with sunscreen, for example, as you just so eloquently said, we think that we're just doing the right thing by doing it. But by not using the proper type of sunscreen, we're actually probably causing more harm to the environment than if we had just left it at home. I believe now you folks, and I'm cheating here because you did provide me with this piece of information that that you guys have a new bill there, that it's passed, Bill 2571, which prohibits the sale and distribution of over-the-counter sunscreen containing oxybenzone and octinoxate, which are probably those two ingredients that are the ones that are harmful to the coral reefs.
Yes, that's right, and they really don't roll off the tongue.
Right, I know. I had to take that slowly so I wouldn't mangle it too badly. Now, just to give you a little inside baseball here, I totally mangled Theresa's last name before we started the podcast. Not on it. Thank you. I appreciate you trying to keep up the veneer.
Well, so that is actually part of the reason we initiated this public awareness campaign, because you have these funny-sounding ingredients in some of the most popular sunscreens out there, all of the most popular ones, Tropicana, that's the one, Neutrogena, and Banana Boat, they Copper Tone, they all include oxybenzone and octinoxate, and so that kind of makes it hard, and especially the spray kind of sunscreen, because also most of it ends up not on your body when you're spraying it outdoors. It flies all around and lands on the sand. So those are the ones to really avoid. And if you're not sure, whether the sunscreen you're using is safe, you can just look on the ingredients list and see whether that's there. But another safe bet is to choose mineral sunscreen, because most of the mineral sunscreen out there is considered to be reef friendly. So it doesn't wash off as easily. It's not chemical based. And so that's what we wanted to do, is raise awareness about the types of ingredients to look out for, and to understand that there are reef-safe alternatives so that you can still protect your skin and protect the environment. So it's really great. So we've actually been raising awareness through talking to people like yourself that can help us get the word out, but also providing our guests with safer alternatives, because like you mentioned, I think everybody wants to do the right thing, but they just don't know sometimes what the right thing is. So we provide our guests with samples for free of the Reef Safe sunscreen. We have dispensers installed at our hotel.
Well, hold on. Don't step on that. You totally didn't just hand out some samples. You handed out over 40,000 samples so far of this. I don't want to give you guys short shrift, but that's pretty cool. And not only that, but you have the Reef Safe sunscreen available at all of your properties that are throughout the state of Hawaii.
Yes, and I'll surprise you even more.
Oh, go for it.
We doubled that number. We've actually now distributed 80,000 samples. So, and we've talked to our sunscreen partners that are considered to be reef safe, and they have confirmed that their sales are growing up in Hawaii. I think just this year alone, they increased their distribution, and they've had record-breaking demand. So it's really exciting to see people starting to act, people starting to choose sunscreen that is safer for the environment, and just really with the bill passing, it was signed into law in July 2018. It will only take effect in 2021, but I have already seen on TV advertising for mineral-based sunscreen. by major producers, and that's something we just didn't see before. So that's really exciting.
That's great. So these major companies are understanding the law of supply and demand, and that folks are demanding a product that's safer for the environment overall. So they're going ahead and creating those particular products out there. Now, Theresa, I got to ask you, I'm sure I already know the answer to this, but if the law is not really active until 2021, are you, how do you wean yourselves off of that? Do you just provide the reef safe sunscreen at this point already?
Yes, at our hotels we do. We only provide the reef safe sunscreen,
right.
And I think it's really exciting also to note that it's not just our company. Although our campaign was the first of its kind, we kicked it off in Earth Month, April 2017. But since that time, a number of other hotels and even the airlines, Hawaiian Airlines, for example, have also launched similar campaigns. And so as an industry, as a community in the tourism industry, we are all coming together and we are all beating the same drum, singing to the same song sheet. And together we can really make a difference and change the tide for our community, for our natural environment, and for our guests.
That's great. I really love it when capitalism and doing the right thing come together to create something that's very successful for everybody. Now, beyond what you're trying to do with that, we haven't even talked about plastics and recyclables. One of the things that I like what you're doing at Aqua-Aston is providing an eco amenity kit, which has reusable shopping tote, a reusable water flask, that reef safe sunscreen, and other ways that are really focused on that whole sustainability effort. How does that help you when appealing to customers that are going to be making the choice on where to stay when they fly all the way to the middle of the ocean to visit Hawaii?
Well, I think that our guests, they've come here to have a good time. They're on vacation, so they don't want to scramble around and try to find a water
Hold on. I'm
bottle
confused. I typically go on vacation to suffer. I think you're onto something here. I'm going to try that next time. Sorry to interrupt you with bad jokes. Please continue.
No, absolutely. I mean, everybody gets their vacation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've come all the way to Hawaii from California. It's at least 5 hours in the air, so it's not a hop, skip, and a jump. And you want to get here and put your toes in the sand and chill out. And you don't want to have to run around and try and find reusable this, that, or the other. You
Right.
want it to be convenient. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to welcome our guests in the spirit of aloha. We're trying to give them what they need to have a sustainable stay and a really good time. So I think that's, it's been really well received. Our guests love it. They want to do the right thing, but it has to be convenient too.
I think that this is a lesson that the entire hospitality industry could really learn. And I think society in general. We all do want to do the right thing, especially if all things are equal. And anything that companies such as yours and other folks within the hospitality industry can do to make it easier on people to do the right thing, I think that's really what's creating a win-win situation for each and everyone involved.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. So now you're going to be getting rid of these plastic straws. It's so funny that once it came into my sphere of understanding how bad these things really are for the environment, it's really been a pet peeve of mine. I weaned myself off of them, okay, but I still go to restaurant after restaurant after restaurant that brings me a straw when I don't even ask for it. I'm one of those people. I don't drink sodas. I drink just water. I don't need a straw in my water to begin with. It's weird. I don't like the way it feels. Something of the McDonald's Coke in the straw, that works okay. But for regular water, I don't get it. I implore everybody out there, just stop bringing those straws. If people want them, at least let them ask for it. And you probably still have straws because you got little kids that are coming to these resorts probably. So what type of solution do you have to make it simple for people not to even think about using a plastic straw for a one-time use?
Sure. Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, there are people out there that need a straw, maybe children or older adults that have trouble. So for those cases, and if you just want one, I guess, we do have biodegradable straws. So
Cool.
they're made of biodegradable, natural, fibrous material. They actually dissolve if you don't use it. If you left it in a glass of beverage for hours and hours, it would dissolve on its own. So we do have that, and we offer it only when requested. So we don't bring it to the table. But we also have stainless steel straws, and those are washable, and actually we let our guests keep them as a keepsake. If at one of our flagship properties called the Surf Deck Hotel and Swim Club, which actually this year in April went plastic free. So
Wow.
they wanted to put a line in the sand. They wanted to go plastic free. When that hotel first opened, they were providing guests with 2 bottles of bottled water every day. And, that's a common amenity in the hotel world. Guests are traveling. They want bottled water. They feel like maybe it's safer, cleaner. And we understand that. But we did the math, and we figured out that this 112-room boutique hotel was going to be producing 75,000 pieces of plastic trash just by providing guests 2 bottles of water a day.
Wow.
That's astounding. And in the Pacific Ocean, you might have heard about the great garbage patch, that's floating out there.
Which is currently the size of France at this point, which is insane.
It's insane. Plastics don't break down; they break up.
All right,
tiny little.
let me see your France-sized pile of garbage in the ocean and raise you with microplastics, which seem to be absolutely everywhere. You can't really take a sip of water anymore without having that get in your body, too. So, again, we're talking about an issue where you could be completely selfish and still wind up doing the right thing because of it.
Yes, and in fact, they are finding microplastics in fish that people eat.
Right.
So it's really, really scary. So to avoid contributing to that problem, this hotel stopped that amenity and installed filtered water stations throughout the hotel. And we also offer our guests the reusable water flask. So
Great.
We still provide fresh, clean, filtered water, but it's a much more environmentally friendly option. So we're really proud of that. And obviously, none of our hotels use any of that styrofoam. So if we have a restaurant takeout container, it's all biodegradable, and we try and use it as sparingly as possible.
Excellent. Anything else that we need to know about hospitality and taking care of the environment and all that kind of good stuff that you folks are doing?
Well, I think in the future, we're hoping to continue to build on this program of environmental stewardship that we've embarked upon. We want to also roll out our Reef Safe Sunscreen initiative to other hotels, as I mentioned. But we're also looking at other ways we can go plastic-free. And that would include things that you might not think of as single-use plastics, like those teeny tiny little bottles of shampoo and conditioner that you get at the hotel.
Right.
That's bad for the environment, too. So we're looking into options on how we can use more of a pump type setup that's a larger container for the product, and probably would be something we could afford to provide a better quality product as well. So that's a win-win. Looking at the ways that we launder our things, towels and beddings, using environmentally friendly options for that, and just trying to not be wasteful. We have already, I think the industry some time ago pretty much uniformly embraced the light switches that turn off if you're not in the room, the air conditioners that turn off when you're not in the room. But we also need our guests to, be in support and participate in this, because, sometimes we forget, especially if you're on vacation, to turn the light off, But things you would normally do at home, sometimes you forget to do when you're on vacation. So we hope that everyone will be, cognizant of the impact that they may or may not be having on the environment.
Well, I want to use this as an opportunity to talk about how horrible my kids are for never turning off a light ever in their lives. And on days that I'm working from home and they get off to school before I do, I before I get to work, I have to walk around the house and turn off all the lights. I feel like I've got a second job doing just that alone. But I think that makes
That's what dads do.
I know,
That's
right? I don't know at what point I turned into my dad and started yelling at them about these things, but now I totally understand it. Except now I feel like not only do I not want to spend the money, I'm really cognizant of everything that we take out of the environment that's beyond being necessary is unreasonably harmful for our environment for no good reason at all. I shouldn't be too lazy to turn off a light. I shouldn't be too lazy to set the air conditioning up a couple of degrees more if I leave the room. And I know most of you guys out there have, presets already and that sort of thing. But we all have to keep focused on that and figure out ways to create better relationship with our environment while still having you all make money. And I think, Theresa, you've really laid out a great argument here for all of this kind of stuff. Anything else that I need to know about what you folks are up to at Aqua-Aston?
I think we just about covered it all. Thank you so much for your time and for having me on the show.
Yeah, I wanna thank you so much for being here and for helping inform our audience of everything. And guys, please, I implore you, please try to do everything that you can to help our environment. I think we're really hitting a fevered pitch here about it. And whether or not you actually believe in climate change, whether or not you actually believe any of this stuff is hurting the environment, at least you can believe in capitalism and it's hurting your business by not including all of these initiatives which actually do the right thing while you make more money, or at least save some money as things go. So I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll be back next time with another episode of the No Vacancy podcast real soon. That is, unless I decide to finally take that trip to Hawaii and go on some sort of fishing expedition to go pick up all of that garbage in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.